Hey, good evening. Hope you're all doing well. Today we are learning Maseches Chullin Daf Mem Vav. Nope, that's not true. Daf Mem Hey, and we're going to be starting toward the bottom on Mem Daled Amud Beis, about 4/5 of the way down. Says the Gemara on the beginning of the line, Omer of Chizda, Ezu Talmud Chacham Zeharoet Treifa La'atzmo. A person is considered a Talmud Chacham when they can paskin on a treifa even for themselves. Rashi, 4 lines from the bottom, says, Zeharoa treifa la'atzmo kshenolad safek treifos bebehemto. When there is a suffix on his own animal and as to whether or not it's a treifa, v'nirbo tam le'isr b'tam leheter ve'eno chasa leha ve'osra. You can be machmir. You can say like, all right, I'm able to paskin on myself l'chumrah. I don't know. What you're not allowed to paskin on yourself l'kula, right? We do allow for a person to paskin shilas for themselves, generally speaking. But I'm a little interested and intrigued by this comment because it sounds to me that being machmer is the easy path. To say that you're machmer, why does that make you a Talmud Chacham? Like that?
You can just go through the garden.
Yeah.
Most other shiur is some whatever. This is.
I don't have a chashash. I don't have a chashash that a Talmud Chacham is going to eat tarfus because of a Yetzer Hara for. I understood. I understood. Yeah. Well, I mean, in their era, things are a little different, obviously, but because it's an interesting din. I would love to spend more time on it. Rav Chizda, Ezehu, who is in the category of, as the pasuk states in Mishlei Sonei Matanos Yechia, Zeharoa Treifa La'atzmo, similar answer. Tarash Mar Zotra Mishmed Rav Chizda, Kol Mishakore V'shona V'roa Treifa La'atzmo, anyone who is Kore, they read Chumash, V'shona, they learn Mishnayos, V'roa Treifa La'atzmo, they can paskin on the Treifa, V'shimish Talmidei Chachamim, and they can serve Talmidei Chachamim, Alav Akasu Am Yagia Kapecha Kisochel Ashrecha B'Tovlach. Lamos, this person who checks all these boxes, they inherit 2 worlds. Rabbi Lazar, who was a 3rd century Amoris, so early on, whenever the Beit Nesiya would send him anything, he would reject it. Nope, not taking anything from you. When they would invite him to be a guest in their building, Lo Azal, he would not go. Amar Lo kaboy mar deichi, don't you want me to live? After all, I have to hate what you're giving me. Reb Zera ki mishadre le lo shakil. Reb Zera was similar in that he wouldn't accept any gifts. However, ki havu mizamnin le also, when they did invite him, he would always say yes. He had a different svara. Omar is what? Isyakure hu de misyakrubi. Look, you want to take me to Shalitz? I will be selfless and go with you. You know, what a guy. Except that he's L'Shem Shamayim and I am not so fru. Not really, no. Depends what I eat. I don't know, but it depends what the budget is. The surprise steak is the elu. It's very good. Okay, says the Gemara on the top of Mem Hey Amud Aleph. We have a lot of ground to cover. This is a Zafta Gadaf on both sides. We'll be learning until about 2/3 of the way down. And if you look on Mem Vav and on Mem Zayin, you'll see that there's some shorter block coming. So I've kind of broken it up a little differently than usual just to make sure that we can finish on time tonight. Amar Yehuda Marav, Nikva, not kinafa like its wing, but kinapa. This is where where grammar makes a difference, like a sieve. A napa is a sieve, not kinafa like its wing. So if there's a hole in the kone, like there are holes in a sieve, namely there's a lot of holes in the kone, then mitzdarfin laruba. If you can get a scenario of rov, then you're in trouble. Otherwise, you're good to go. Masiv Rav Yirmiyah, why would you say that it's based on rov? Uvigulgoles, when we talk about the skull, sheyesh ba nekev echad aruch. If there's one very long hole in it, afilu yesh ba nekavim harbe. Even if there are a lot, mitzdarfim le melo miktach. We measure all of those holes so that they, if they total the size of a drill hole, which is a miktach, I think even in modern Hebrew, I think that's how we say drill, mikadech or something. I'm pretty sure. Anyways. Says the Gemara that if all the holes in the skull add up to the drill hole, then that's when it would be a treifa. Alma kevan de shiurim lemekdach lemekdach mitzarfina. Hachanami by the kane. Why did you say rov? Kevan de shiure keisar lecheisar mitzarfin. We haven't learned this yet, but we will soon learn that the shiur of isser is that of a coin. We'll learn it today later on. That if a coin can be fit through the kane, that's how you know there's a psul. So why did you say at the top of the page of Yehuda Amar Rav that it's based on all the holes being mitzdarif to rov? It should not be mitzdarif to rov. It should be mitzdarif to less, which is an isar. Says the Gemara. The reason why you even asked that question is because you're missing something. Ishtamitse hada Amar Rabbi Chelbo Amar Rav Chama Bar Guria Amar Rav. Nekavim sheish b'hem chisaron. If there are holes, and the holes are not just holes where there's no lack of material, but like a hole puncher, right? If you have a hole that actually took flesh away, that's different than mitzar from the chisar. But she'ein bahen chisaron, then mitzar from the ruba. So if you can imagine taking a needle and poking through the kaneh, how much flesh have you removed? Zero. You're separating it, you're pressing it down, you're pushing it to the sides of the face. But if I take a hole puncher and I remove a portion of it, that's different. So the distinction that's being made over here by Rav is that if there is a chisar, and if flesh is actually missing, then mitzar from the chisar. Then we use the measure of a coin. However, if nothing's missing, then we use the tzeiruf of a rov, and we have a proof for this in two places. Amar Rabbi Bar Bachana, Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, nitla himena ritzua mitzarefes l'chisar. Look, when something's missing, a strip is missing. Oh, what do we measure? L'chisar. It's exactly like we just saw earlier. And as well, ba'amini Rabbi Yitzchak bar Nachmanim Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, nikva kanafa. A kinapa mahu. He has similarly what we saw above. Amar le hare amru nikavim sheish b'hem chisar mitzar from the chisar v'shein b'chisaron v'shein ben chisar mitzar from the ruba. So now we have a very clear conclusion of this little section of the Gemara that when it comes to the kaneh, if in fact there are holes in the kaneh, well, it depends what kind of holes they are. If there are holes that are actually removing portions of the flesh, so then the din is different. There we have mitzarfin l'cheisar, but if they didn't remove any flesh, then it's mitzarfin l'ruba. Be'ofa mai, what would we do in regards to an oaf? Would we have the same measure of rov if X and ke'isar if Y? But it's not really true because an isar is only true for a larger animal. So Rav Yitzchak bar Nachmani l'didim ifshli minei Rabbi Elazar. I have a direct answer from Rabbi Elazar. Mikaplo umanicho al pi hakana. Okay, I need your abstract brain here. We have a tube like this. This is the kana, and there are a lot of holes in one spot, or we kind of assessed that all the holes would be in one spot. If we were to take all of the holes and cut a flap and run it over the opening of the tube, then if it functions like a sieve, then you're in trouble. Then you know that the kana is not valid. In other words, if there are so many individual puncture marks that if you were to cut a flap that included all of those individual puncture marks, that it covered most of the airspace, so then it would not be kosher. Im chofe es rov hakana trefa v'im lav kshera. Again, it's conceptual. We're not going to do surgery, obviously. So let's say that there are two puncture marks. You take the two puncture marks. If you were to draw a tiny little flap, it would not cover the rove of the cross section of the pipe. But if there were 50 little dots, yeah, you'd be in trouble. The animal would be a treva. There it's based on rov. Amar papa v'simanech nafyo. It should look like a sieve. I don't know why that's I don't know how that's a simon, but that's what the Gemara says. Nivchasa kedelas. Let's say that there's a flap that was cut into the wall of the kana that kind of functions as a door. So again, like you have like this cylinder, and there's like a flap that's attached, but it also kind of opens and closes as the animal breathes, So what if you have a delas? So says the Gemara, Amar Rav Nachman, Kadeshi Kanes Isar L'Rachba. Now we see a Mar Makam about the Isar, is that if the space of the delas flap on the kaneh is large enough to fit a coin, then it's a treifa, if not, not. Nistika, what if there's a crack on the kaneh, meaning there's a split vertically on the kaneh, not across in a cross-section fashion, but along the length? Amar afilu lo nishtayir ba ela chulya achas l'malav chulya achas l'mata kshera. Even if there's only one piece of cartilage above and one piece of cartilage below, no problem at all. Rabbi Yochanan, he couldn't even believe it. Why would you say this has anything to do with the chulias? The chulias are a very narrow section, even on our own necks. We can feel the chulios. It's not the whole trachea, it's a small section. So Rav Nachman's like, Amar ma chulia chulya teka Amar Rav. Why are you talking about the chulias? It should just be ela ema afilu lo nishtayir ba ela mashu lemalu mashu lemata. That when we talk about this case of nistika, that as long as there's one space where it's not cracked on the lower side and one space where it's not cracked on the upper side, ksher, no problem at all. You're not missing any flesh. It's a crack, but it's not. We're not worried about it. It's all good to go. So Amruha Kame de Rav Yochanan Mishmei de Rav Yonasan Hachi, and Amar Lahu, Rav Yonasan responded, Yadin Chavrin Bavloi Lifrushe Ki Time. These people from Babylonia are smart. They're holding cup. As we Tana Rav Chia Bar Yosef. Kame, the Rabbi Yochanan, Kol Hatzavar Kulo Kosher L'Shchita. The entire neck is kosher for shchita. Tabas Hagdola, as we already learned, in regards to the trachea, from the top large ring, like the Adam's apple, as it were, but right at the top of the Adam's apple, ad kanfe rea hatachtona, until the lower lobes of the lungs. That's very schwer. The tfisa. That was talking about the esophagus. I was talking about the vesha.
Tell us that fit a coin in, or you can't fit a coin, is that because if it's large enough to go fit it, then the animal is going to benefit. Is that why it's
Very well could be. I didn't see what I didn't look.
I think we're still talking trachea.
Oh, we're definitely talking trephus. The question is, why was the measure in Isar for a larger animal?
that's so large that the animal is
It's a great question.
that's going to.
I presume so.
Right.
I presume so. But then again, why would rove matter in the other? It can't be. It can't be.
Yeah, nothing's going to cover the flap up the top. There's so many holes there that the things, there's too many holes there, right?
Right, but we made a distinction in the top of Mem Hamad Aleph that if the holes were actually flesh missing, then the shiur is an Isar. If there were no holes, then it's a rove. That tells me that we're not measuring for treifa. That tells me that they had a Masorah for, or maybe they are measuring, maybe they are, but they have different Masorahs for what would be, could be.
It's funny what you said before, the Dallas case has no chisar. When something is missing, the shiur.
But
What about this case?
It's an extra, isn't it? It's an
Not extra.
No, it's
Not
cut open, but it's not cut off.
The Dallas
should be there. I
The
thought.
Dallas should be there.
Oh, I thought this.
Yeah. No, it's not.
It's like a flap.
It's swinging on the.
No, but everyone has it. This is.
No. This is an abnormality.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. So
Since it's not a chisar, it fall into the regular category.
What?
no, but if it's not, but if it's large enough, sorry, if it's large enough that it's an abnormality and it's large enough, right? Then it's going to be a problem.
Large enough for what? Doesn't fall into the category of.
It's large enough for the point, no?
Right.
We did say
At
Isar in
point,
that case.
It's gone too far, so to speak.
Right.
Yeah, I have a feeling you're right, but what I'm struggling with is hearing so many varied shiurim. Like these tiny little poked holes, even if there's 50 of them, you can't breathe. I don't know. When we talk about treifa is not always about the physiological realities. If I poke a hole in the stomach lining, the animal's a treifa. Not because, right. I'm just unsure. I hear what you're saying. It's probably connected, but is it connected because the animal will automatically die from a breathing issue? I don't know if it's that or this broad thing of being a treifa, which according to some Tanoim, as we saw earlier, doesn't mean you're going to die. Be a chaya. So I don't. I may connect to that sugya actually about if you hold that a treifa means you're going to die, then this shiur is to reflect that. And if you don't hold that way, then it's just stam shiur. Yeah, it's just an I don't know. Allah Moshe Misinai. A lot of the treifas are Allah Moshe Misinai anyway, so it could just be that a Kadosh Baruch Hu said. But if you say that animal is still going to be a chaya, even though it's a treifa, the shiur is not a death sentence. It's just a fact that you're a treifa. So I don't know. Okay, where are we? Okay, so says the Gemara, okay, so he said that the entire tzavar, we're halfway down, literally halfway through the white lines, kulo kasher kanfe. This is difficult because it says the whole neck is kosher for shchita from the top of the Adam's apple down to ad kanfe rea hatachtona, from the lower lobes of the lungs. This is very difficult. You cannot shecht the lungs. In fact, if you have a neckhead in the lung, the animal's a treifa. So what does this mean? So Amar Rava, tachtona shehi elyona. We don't mean tachtona like bottom of the lungs, apex at the bottom. Like, the doctor will say, take a deep breath. They listen very low. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the tachtona shehi elyona. We're talking about the uppermost lobe that's part of the animal. very odd language. Some Mefarshim say if you hold the animal upside down, because that might honestly that was the orientation where when they're looking at the animal, it's not standing upright. The animal's lying on its back, so everything's inverted. So their Elyona was Tachtona, right? So it could be that that's what was going on over here. But either way, you of course can't shech the lungs. That would be because they for sure do. They must. I don't know why people don't actually eat giraffes. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, I think because the lungs, the lobes like stick up like that, so it kind of goes down here. So there's like a space where the upper lobes and where the kind of overlap. So I think it's like the lower level of the kana, but it's
within the lobe heights. So if these are the lobes and you have that's not how, I don't think that's how, was that how Rashi understood it? That's not how. Rashi says halfway down, Kanfe Rea, One Rea, the ears of the lungs, Hatachtona. Then before I show Tachtona, Kshabehema Tluya, when the animal's hanging upside down, Dahainu, Onos Ktanos, like you are saying, the when the animal's standing upright, it's the curves at the top. Shehi Elyona Ksheochzin Bekone Vare Tluya Lamato. Doesn't seem like you're able to cut in between them. Just that you can cut up to them. Did you hear otherwise? I don't see that here in Rashi.
No, you're in the middle of the sentence, by the way.
What?
You're in the middle of the sentence in the Gemara.
Yeah, I know. Wait. Where are you? Where are you?
Isn't that where you are in the Gemara?
I was looking at Rashi.
But we didn't finish the line in the Gemara, which might clarify. It says posheta savara, it sticks out its neck.
No, just no, that's true. But I was just saying the first language of the Gemara is Amarava Tachtona Shehi Elyona. So Rashi.
I'm saying that's not the whole.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I hear you. So let's see the rest of it. Shani Omer Kol She Poshetes Tzavara Viroe Ubelvad Shalotanis. So what the Gemara means is if the animal will extend its neck to graze, all of that is free rein for shchita. Ubelvad Shalotanis, but you can't pull the kane out of the fleshy area of the body in order to shecht it, and we'll soon see that would be aser. So then Rashi says, Kanfe rea, one rea, hatachtona. Then before I show up, hatachtona, kshehabehema tluya. Dehainu, when the animal's upside down. So what is the tachtona, which is really the elyona? Dehainu onos ktanos, shehi elyona, ksheochsin bekona, v'harei tluya. Yeah, it's only up to that point, not in between. Not in between. That's what it seems like over here. Okay, so let's get back inside over here. So it says the Gemara, Boy Reb Chanina, v'item Reb Chananya, Unsa Atzma Mahu. What if the animal stretched itself in an abnormal way, such that the kana extended further into the neck than it normally would have? So you can see, like if I were to crane my neck upwards, I draw the simanim higher. If I follow my Adam's apple, it joins me. So I'm in a contorted way where there's more trachea showing. So if the animal did that, but normally it's not revealed, and I did shchita in that spot, would that count? Says the Gemara, Teku. We don't know the answer to that. Yosef, Rav Yochanan, Rav Shimon ben Lakish. Nafak milsa b'minah, they were talking and learning. Anas b'simanu b'shachat. Let's say that you did forcibly pull the trachea forward. The section would normally have been blocked by, let's say, the ribcage, chves, but you pulled it forward and did shchita, psula. Nikev hakane lemata minacha. If a person were to poke a hole in the trachea that was within the chest cavity, it's still the trachea, but it's within the chest cavity, nidon kereya. The halacha is we judge that nekev like a lung, and you just made your animal a treifa. You'll tell me it's a trachea. The Gemara's mechadesh adin that the trachea, when it's within the rib cage, when it's out of the tzavar, it's no longer, halachically speaking, the trachea. Now it's the lungs. Okay? And that means that it's nidon kare. It's a big chumrah. big chumrah. I don't know who's sticking needles into the next animals, but for those who were trying to do this, whatever the case may be, it would be considered a treifa. And it's related in one way, but when we talk about the chazeh v'shok that are the matanos of Kohanim, whatever the case may be, Tanu Rabbanon, Ezehu chazeh. What is considered to be the chazeh? This is found in the Tosefta over here. It says the Gemara in 4 different directions. Zeharoa esakarka. It's when the animal is standing up. It's the part of the chest that looks at the ground, so that makes sense. Lamate ad hatzavar. In one direction, it's to the neck. Lamala ad hakeres. In the other direction, down to where the stomach ends. Chotech shtei tzlaos mishtei defanos elech ve'elech. We cut 2 ribs in that space. V'zeu chaz anita lekohanim. They have very specific chef rules. You have to cut exactly right in the right spot. Otherwise, you got the wrong thing. Nikev krum shel moach. Let's talk about the psul, the treifa of the sheaths that are in the brain. Rav Shmuel da'amrei tarvayu karma ila'a. There were 2 different sheaths within the brain of an animal. One was skull-based. It was kind of connected to the skull. And the other one was brain-based. So one was like up against the skull, and the other was kind of like the brain in the Ziploc, right? This is kind of how to look at it. Afal gav delo in cave tata. They held that if the upper krum, the one that is the skull-based krum, was poked, even though the tata, the one that was around the brain, wasn't poked, animal still treifa. The amrila, some say not that way. Ad in cave tata. No, it's not a treifa until the one that immediately is in contact with the brain is poked. Amr Shmuel bar Nachmeni v'simanich chaysa demasnach be mocha. We're talking about the pouch that the brain is in. So obviously he was of the opinion that that's how you make a treifa. It's not the upper sheath that's closer to the skull, but the inner sheath that is immediately covering the brain. I have no idea what I'm talking about anatomically. I'm under an assumption that all of that okay. So it says the Gemara 4 lines from the bottom. Amar Rabba Bar Bachana, Amar Rabbi Shimon Levi, Kenegdo bebeitzim nikar. We have a similar idea like this as well by the beitzim, by the testicles, that there is a sheath right around, and there's also a larger sheath in the broader area. Similar type of analogy. Amar Rabbi Shimon Pazi, Amar Rabbi Shimon Levi, Mishum Bar Kapara, Moach. When we talk about the brain, how do we define the brain? Because remember, if you poke the sheath of the brain itself, the animal is going to be a treifa. Where does the brain end? There is a sheath that runs down the spinal cord. It says the Gemara, Moach, kol mashe bektera, has to be that which is in the pot. What pot are we talking about? It's just a mashal. It's the skull. The brain is in the skull. Well, where does it end? Because at the end of the day, our nervous system starts up there, but it's all connected down our spinal cord. So it says the Gemara, kol mashe bektera nidon kemoach. Hischil limshoch, where the brain begins to narrow and extend downward, nidon kechut hashidra. Now we have a different din, which we're going to focus on a little bit more today, which is the spinal cord and all the contents of the vertebrae, the spinal cord itself, the discs, all that jazz. Says the Gemara, that has a different halacha. How do we know when the brain shifts from brain to spinal cord, to chut hashidra? Rav Yitzchak bar Nachmeni, he said, don't worry, I have anatomical landmarks. It's like this anatomical structure that's like 2 beans, yesh, munachin al pi hakdeira, right at the base of, literally the mouth of, but from the bottom by the brain stem, al pi hakdeira, min hapulin vilifnim kilifnim, on the within the skull. Okay, so let's get north toward the brain of this anatomical structure. It's inside, has a din of a moach. Minapulin velachutz kilachutz. But if it's lower than this anatomical structure, then it's like the chut hashidra. The halachos are different. The brain is just a tiny little poke. The shidra, as we'll soon see, could be rove, could be something else. We're going to talk about the oros, and we're going to talk about the moach of the spine. Fine. But the actual anatomical structure that we're using as our landmark to determine what's brain and that we don't know. That piece itself we don't know. Says the Gemara, yes, we do. Mistabra kilifnim. We're machmer, we treat it like it's part of the brain, and therefore even a tiny poke of the sheath that covers it would make it a treifa. No, I did not.
That one, the first
Oh.
Chullin, glands.
Glands. Wasn't my favorite hunting.
Yeah.
Blutim, it says on the side. I have a little gimel on the word glands. What is glands? What?
Glands. I was thinking, I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe.
that's what I thought.
Like endocrinology.
Yeah.
Yeah, what is the structure? Are there pictures in there?
Look here, we're all handicapped here, this is unbelievable.
It is
I'm sitting
unbelievable.
getting everything and I'm just like blind.
Would you like to see the?
Yes, I'd like to see.
No, I want to see the anatomical structure of the Shnei Pulin. I want to see the Shnei Pulin.
Like on kindergarten and the cool kid brings the book and like knows everything and I'm like sitting in the dark.
He's in pooling, that's too bad. Two white things.
Occipital condyles.
Yes, that's why I don't have art scroll.
Yeah.
That now I'm worse off.
Well, the occipital lobe of the human being is located at the back of the. Yeah, it's the ones that support the. But those are muscular. Those are not. The suboccipitals are muscles. I know that because I've had people stick needles in my suboccipitals. Robert Goldstein in particular. Okay, you guys want to do picture time on the carpet? We can do that. We can. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. Okay. Rav Yirmiyah, 3 lines down, Mem Hamid Beis. We're going to go about 2/3 of the way down, then we're going to stop. Rav Yirmiyah badak be'ofa. He actually checked in an oaf, in a bird. Ve'ashkach kamin shnei pulin munachin al pi akder. And he actually found these 2 pulin, these 2 bean-like structures. It says in the art scroll, the occipitals, which we do have that. Like at the base of our skull, we have muscles that are called the suboccipitals. So it says, I don't know, it's not like I know what I'm talking about. I don't know what I'm talking about. Robert Goldstein said, I need to stick a needle in the suboccipitals in the back of your head. That's how I know what those are
It
called.
says that to everybody.
I know, yeah. It says to everybody. That's unbelievable. I'm like, you still didn't get rid of my headache, so to stop stabbing me with needles. So he said that he found this particular structure. Okay? Okay, Nikev Halev Lebeis Chalala. We learned about this then in the Mishnah, that if the heart was pierced into the chambers, so says the Gemara, Boy Reb Zera, Lebeis Chalal Katan, or Lebeis Chalal Gadol. Are we talking about the smaller of the chambers or the larger of the chambers? Says the Gemara, Amar le'abai ma'iti bailach. I don't even understand your question. I'm going to bring a raya from the lungs. Milotznan, we already learned. Reb Shimon Omer ad shetinokev lebeis hasimponos. There we saw that it is until the main tube that runs center in our lungs, not the small bronchioles that go off into the sides, not the little guys, but the lung is only going to be puzzle, again, according to this version of the Mishnah, if it punctures the large main bronchiole that goes after the split, so that it comes down in one, and then there's a split, and it goes down into each lung. The main thoroughfare, the main arterial space of air in each of the lungs is what we're talking about. What were we talking about? Only the larger one. Therefore, we should assume by the heart, it's also a larger chamber and not a smaller chamber. Says the Gemara, Hachi Hashta? No, you don't get to just compare one organ to another. That's not how this works. Not only that, but the language doesn't work. Hasam lebeisa simponos kani lehecha de shachli simponos kulhu. That's where all of the smaller bronchioles dump the air into or push the air out to. But it's that larger central area of the lungs. V'hacha, but by the heart, the language was different. Lebeis chalalo ktani mali chalal gadol mali chalal katan. The language of chalalo doesn't have the same vibe as the language of Beis HaSimponos, which seems to imply something larger. So therefore, no raya whatsoever from there. Knei Halev, I don't know what this means yet. We'll see in a minute. The Knei Halev, Rav Amar B'Mashu, Shmuel Amar B'Rubo. Rav says that when we talk about the Knei Halev, some tube, something that's connected to the heart, then what? No, we will see it's not that. It might not be that. That was the first thing I thought of. Yeah, it's one of those or some major artery or vein, but probably artery. That's what I thought, but it doesn't seem that way. It says the Gemara, the psul is b'mashu Shmuel Amar berubo. First of the long lines, 1/3 of the way down Mem Hamud base. Hi nihu knei halev. What are we talking about? It says Gemara, Amar Rav bar Yitzchak Amar Rav chelev shal gabed fanos. Fat that is on the walls. Defanos selka daitach? Defanos is what? Ribs? What are you we were talking about the heart. Why are you talking about the ribs? Ella shal gabe dofne rea. We're talking about fats that somehow are connected to the cardiac space and the lung space. That's what it seems to say here. Ella shal gabe dofne rea. Rashi, shal gabe dofne rea, kane shuman, something of fat. Sheyored bain shtei arugos harea, between the two arugos. I mean, I know what the word aruga means. Yeah, normally, but all right. V'davok b'shidra u'mechubar l'chal al halev. So it's some type of fascia, which is what we would have said in modern science, that connects everything. If you're not a scientist by the end of this, you know.
Well, honestly, I can't. It's a picture. Strawberry, so I don't know.
That's what David saw, a strawberry, you know. So there is some type of fatty material, fascia, connective tissue that's kind of connecting the spine to the lungs and to the heart. Amar Amemar Mishmeder of Nachman, Tlasa Kaneha, there actually are three of these. Chad Parish Liliba, one is in the direction of the heart. Bechad Parish Lirea, one is in the direction of the lungs. Bechad Parish Likavda, one is in the direction of the liver. Says the Gemara, Dereya, the kane of the reya are like the reya. They're kireya in that, if there's a neck of their puzzle. The kavda kikavda, the kane of the liver is like the liver in that only when the organ is removed is it problematic. A nekev is not problematic. Diliba, what about the kane of the lave? That is pligi. Mar barchia, that is pligi. That's where we have a machlokes about whether it would have the din of a kaved or of a reya. Mar barchia masni ipcha. He actually learned that the kanes were different. He said the reya kekavda, the kane of the reya, this connective tissue of the reya had a din of a kaved. Not that if it was poked it would be possible, but only if it was removed. The kavda kireya, the kane of the liver had the din of a reya, which is that if it was punctured, it would be a trefa. And the liba pligi, and they had a machlokes about. So there's just machlokes about exactly which kane is which. I also thought, like you, Rabbi Yaakov, that we were talking about veins, arteries, nerves. It doesn't seem that way from Rashi. It seems from Rashi like we're talking about some connective tissue, or strawberries, one, one of the two.
Agree with me.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's like a strawberry.
Stan, you will be the second witness over here.
See what the strawberry here?
Well, it certainly does. It most certainly does.
It's a very odd language. The heart is typically shaped in a strawberry kind of way.
Yeah.
It's got
It
all of
has
the
a shape.
various veins and arteries or whatever coming out of it that look like.
Yeah, but again, just from Rashi, just the way he defined it
does
just
not seem to be cutting nothing but yolks, but rather this other little bit of shuman.
yeah, it's connective tissue,
I
whatever.
think the darkened part here was the
I was
actual
gonna say,
part,
there's two different.
and it's the part above it.
It's like it's like a covering on it.
Right.
Bottom. part.
Humans have
I
that.
think so.
Yeah.
The pericardium. We got a lot of stuff going on over there. We have we all have anatomical structures like that, but that's specific to the heart. Don't know. Okay, Azal, where are we? 5 lines into the wide lines. Mem Hayam and Beis. Azal Rabbi Bar Yosef Amr L'Shmaisek Derav Kame de Shmuel. He said what Rav said in front of Shmuel. Rav is on the first. I just want to make sure that we're not misquoting here. Rav, 2 lines before the wide lines, said that the Kanei Halev are pasal b'mashu. So when Shmuel heard that, Amar le ihachi Amar Abba, if that's what Abba said, lo yada betrefos v'lo klum. Then Rav doesn't know anything about trefos, nor does he know anything. I'm just going to continue. 2 dots, halfway down.
Just leave it like that. It's like
That's a fair question to ask. We're leaving it. Unless you plan on shechting animals anytime soon, and you plan on what is the case? Sticking a needle through the fascia that connects the heart and the lungs and the spine, we're going to move on. But one day we'll have time to go through the sugya properly. Nishbar hashidra, if the spine broke, tanu rabbanan. Chut hashidra shenifsag berubo. When we talk about the spinal cord, when is the animal puzzle? Only berov. Rabbi Yaakov Omer, no, more machmir, afilu nikev, even if there's just a pierce, even if there's just a small little hole. But even Rebbe didn't agree with his own shita. Hore Rebbe, who said rov, ki Rabbi Yaakov, who said nikev. So he recanted. He obviously felt that his opinion was wrong and that Rabbi Yaakov was right. What's the havamina? Why would he say rov? He needed a mar. Okay, not for now. Amar Rav Huna, after all that and all the recanting that Rebbe did, ain't halacha ka Rabbi Yaakov, but instead the halacha is like Rebbe. It's like ping pong. So we actually hold like Rebbe that the treifa status of the chut hashidra is rov and not a nekef. And vikama rubo. How do we measure rov? Rav Amar rov oro. So now we have to get into the anatomy here. There is an outer layer of skin around the chut hashidra. The amre la rov mocho, and some say no, it's not the outer layer of skin. It's only the moach. It's only the content of the spinal cord, not the skin that surrounds the spinal cord. Man de amar rov mocho, according to the one who says that we're talking about the inner material. Kol shekain rov oro, he would for sure agree if it was rov oro. Leman de amar rov oro, rov mocho mai. What would he say about rov mocho? Tashma, let's see. De amar nilvi amar Rav Huna. Nilvi was a person's name. I do think we've seen this in Shas before, but I'm not 100% sure. Nilvi says in the name of Rav Huna, Rubo Sha'amru Rovoro. And Moach Zeh, when we talk about the inner contents of the spinal cord, Lamale v'lamorid. No impact on what you do there. We're only talking about the or. So if you cut rov of the circumference of the or, that's when we have a treifa status. Ibnasan bar Ovin have a Yosef Kamei Badak berov oro. So he checked, just like we saw from the Shita of Nilvi in the name of Rav Huna. He checked the or. But then also v'kabadik berov mocho. He looked at both features, which is odd. So Amar Le, imrov oro kayam. If you have most of the or, it doesn't matter what happened to the moach. And with this, we're going to close. Moach zeh. So right here, it seems to be that we are of the opinion that only the or governs, the outer components of the spinal cord, but whatever is going on the inside of the spinal cords, we're not so worried about. And we'll pick up with more on this topic tomorrow, starting with Amar Rabba Bar Barchana, halfway through the wide lines, 2/3 of the way down. I'm Hamid Beis, wishing you all beautiful